Garden Basics with Farmer Fred is brought to you by Smart Pots, the original lightweight, long-lasting fabric plant container. It's made in the USA. Visit smartpots.com/Fred for more information and a special discount. That's smartpots.com/Fred. Welcome to the Garden Basics with Farmer Fred podcast. If you're just a beginning gardener or you want good gardening information, well, you've come to the right spot. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we water a plant. No, don't hit pause. Really, we have some tips about watering your garden that just might be new to you, no matter how many years you've held a garden hose. We talk with Renee Shepard of Renee's Garden Seed Company about a dependable, beautiful, tasty, leafy green for the summer that you can easily grow. Swiss Chard. Automate, elevate, eliminate, delegate. Those are the keys to many effective garden time savers, or to just make it easier on your mind and body whenever you head out into the yard. It's all in episode 16 of Garden Basics with Farmer Fred, and we're going to save you some time here too. You're going to get your ears back in under 30 minutes. Let's go. We start off this segment of the Garden Basics podcast with a little basketball history. John Wooden, UCLA basketball coach, coached there from 1948 to 1975. In that time, he won 10 national championships. 7 of those were in a row. And yet every season at UCLA, when he was head coach, the first practice always began with the players huddled around John Wooden, sitting on the floor, and John Wooden would say, "Gentlemen, this is how we put on our socks and shoes. This is how we tie our shoes." Now, why did he do that? Well, he didn't want his players to get blisters, for one thing. He didn't want their shoes to come off while they were playing. And for gardeners, there is the lesson, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we water plants. What are you talking about, you're saying? You've watered plants your whole life. Of course you know how to water. Do you? Well, gather round. Coach Debbie Flower is going to teach us how to water our garden. So I turn it over now to the coach, professor of horticulture, retired, Debbie Flower. And Debbie, watering your plants, it's part art, it's part science, it's part craft, and maybe a little bit of luck, too.
There is an art to watering. People, I think, don't realize that it's a technique and you have to know how to do it and do it correctly if your plants are going to thrive. The time we taught them to water was when we were planting things into containers, primarily seeds, but also transplanting maybe rooted cuttings from one container to another container. And the students would do their planting part, and one rule I always had was no matter what kind of planting we were doing, the last thing you do is water. Always water. You want to water to settle the soil particles around the roots or around the seed, and you want to leave your plant or seed in a moist environment. But it's very easy to overwater or water too hard, especially if there's a seed in there. And if you water too hard, you'll knock that seed right out of the container and have nothing come up in that pot. And that would be a shame for all that effort to go away. So we taught the students how to water, and that was to use the correct nozzle. We like Dram products and use Dram, DRAMM is a very good commercial. They make commercial watering products for greenhouse production, and anyone can buy them. And we would use the red nozzle and the Dram product on the end of a watering wand and have the students turn the water on to a nice shower and then stand back from their tray of plants and turn the water so it's up in the air. They're not directing it directly down onto the plants. They're shooting it up in the air and letting it come down as a soft rainstorm. And you water until you see water come out the bottom of the pot, which is a little hard to evaluate because you're applying water at the same time. So you want to see some water collect on the surface and then see it come down below the container and hope that it is truly going through the pot. If you have any question whether it did, you water the container, let the water drain through, and then knock it out of the pot and make sure that the soil is wet all the way to the bottom.
Was there a number you could assign to this? For example, if the plants were in a 1-gallon container or a 2-gallon container, would you count to 10 for the one and count to 20 for the two?
Counting is actually used a lot in professional horticulture to evaluate whether enough water is being applied. It's a number that you have to come to for yourself because it depends on the media that you're using and the rate at which you're applying the water. But it's a good, I do it all the time I have lots of plants in containers, both inside and outside, and I count when I water. I use a watering can and I count to, say 6 for a gallon and 12 for something bigger. Actually, 6 is not enough for a gallon for me. And when I did my master's work at UC Davis and we had to water plants as part of the experiment, that's how we applied the water. And so we went outside with the hose end we were going to use, so the dram hose wand and a 5-gallon bucket, and turned the water on and stood over the 5-gallon bucket and counted at whatever was a comfortable pace for us until we filled the bucket. And then we knew how long it took to apply 5 gallons of water. A number 1 or a 1-gallon pot it takes about a liter of water or a quart of water to thoroughly wet the media in most cases. It varies somewhat by the media, but in most cases. And so you could do the math and come up with how long to hold that hose over that pot and apply only a quart of water. So yes, counting is definitely something to get to know about yourself, how your hose applies water, how your media accepts water, and then how much water is needed for each container.
I've been trying to do the math in my head while you were speaking. So give me the number as far as how long it would usually take to fill a 5-gallon bucket with water.
Let's say 2.5 minutes.
All right, 2.5 minutes using the shower setting on the nozzle?
Right.
All right. And then you take that and convert it to a 1-gallon container, which is not truly a gallon. This is a 1-gallon
right.
term for a pot at a nursery. Is usually a pot that's about 8 inches wide and tall?
Yes.
So we'll call it
about that.
So you were saying that is about a quart capacity.
With media in there, the space left over for water is about a quart. Yes.
All right. So
that would be 1/20th of 5 gallons because there are 4 quarts per gallon.
So if it took 2.5 minutes to fill that 5-gallon bucket, it would take 1/20th of 2.5 minutes. So we have to convert 2.5 minutes to seconds. So that would be 150 seconds. And 1/10 of 150 seconds is 15. So 30 seconds to fill a quart container or a 1-gallon. This is confusing. This is why we're doing basic gardening, folks, because math is a big part of it. It would take 30 seconds to apply a quart of water to a 1-gallon container.
With that hose at that speed, yes.
At that speed, right.
And that's how I established we were not using plants in containers. We were using plants outdoors. But for establishing these plants, they were new from nursery pots into the ground. And they, I believe, were in number 5s. And I spent one night with my husband in the table saw, and we cut the tops of a whole bunch of number 5 containers off and used those as rings. We actually put them in the ground around each plant. Because when you first put a plant in the ground, the first 6 weeks or so of its life, it's feeding off only the media that was in the nursery container. And so for the first 6 weeks, I would water with this counting technique inside the ring that I had cut off the top of the pot and put into the soil around the plant. And so that I was for sure getting enough water into that nursery media that I had just put in the ground. And then once a week, I would do that about every 2 or 3 days. It depends on the weather. It was a summer project, so I had to go in frequently and do it. And then in between times, once a week, we would water the whole field, so the field soil would also get wet. And after 6 weeks, the plants were on their own, and they did just fine.
This is good stuff. I like it.
It's complicated. It's something that a lot of people don't know.
Debbie Flower, once again, we learned something we didn't know about gardening. Water is hard. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
We'd like to welcome our first advertiser here to the Garden Basics with Farmer Fred podcast. It's the people at Smart Pots. What's a Smart Pot? It's a fabric container. It's lightweight, it's long-lasting, it's made in the U.S. of A. Now, I've been pretty picky about who I allow to advertise on this program. That's why it took a while. My criteria, though, it's pretty simple. It has to be a product I like. It has to be a product I use. It has to be a product I would buy again. Smart Pots clicks all three of those boxes. I got my first Smart Pots back in the fall of 2016. I thought, these are interesting. I'll try them out next year. Well, in 2017, we decided to redo the entire landscape, which means anything I put in a pot would probably end up getting moved in the transformation process. It would be moved from sun to shade and back around. I was wondering how well these fabric containers would hold up to all that movement. I was pleasantly surprised. And yes, you could pick up those fabric pots, soil, plants, and all, and move them without the bottom breaking out, without any damage whatsoever. They are amazingly strong. And I'm still using one of those 4-year-old Smart Pots. I'm growing a Juliet tomato in one of them. Smart Pots lightweight fabric containers come in a wide variety of sizes, and they last for years. Check them out for yourself, and I think you'll like what you see. Go to smartpots.com/Fred for more information. Why add the /Fred? Because we have a special deal for you, a nice discount on your next Smart Pot purchase. Smart Pots, they're the original lightweight, long-lasting fabric plant container made in the USA. Visit smartpots.com/Fred for more information and a special discount. That's smartpots.com/Fred. There are a lot of books on the market that'll tell you how to garden. There's a lot of books on the market that tell you how to cook. Well, how about a book that combines garden tips and cooking tips? Well, there is one. It's called the Renee's Garden Cookbook, delicious recipes for everyday cooking with growing advice for kitchen gardeners. Renee Shepard is the author. She runs Renee's Garden. Renee'sGarden.com is an online seed store. You can even find her seed packets at your favorite local nursery, probably. And she has a line of garden books as well. And she has a new book. And the book combines expert gardening advice and delicious recipes that showcase the colors and flavors of freshly picked kitchen garden produce. Renee Shepard, it's a pleasure talking to you again.
Well, thank you very much, Fred.
Renee, you've had cookbooks on the market for over 10 years now.
That's right. This is my third cookbook, but it's the first one where we combine gardening advice for each vegetable and how to grow it, as well as lots of good ideas what to do once you're harvested it.
Now, if people want more information about the cookbooks, they can go to your website, reneesgarden.com. Your other cookbooks, like more recipes from a kitchen garden or recipes from a kitchen garden. And the fact that you're combining how to grow it with how to eat it makes sense for me, because it's been my mantra for a while now. You grew it, now eat it. And so many people just let that food go to waste in the garden, and they forget about it. They forget it's out there.
Well, that's true. Running a seed company, we have a huge trial garden where we evaluate new varieties. So I am always faced with lots of great things from the garden to eat, and it's a challenge to make good use of them. That's why this cookbook was created, because we always cook with all the different varieties. So if I'm growing, like I recently did, 3 different varieties of purple carrots to see which ones I want to sell seed for, then I got to figure out what to do with all those carrots. And, of course, everybody's happy to take them home, but it's still something. I feel like the best part of gardening is cooking, and the best part of cooking is being able to get it out of the garden.
Now, another crop you have on here that you talk about in your book, the Renee's Garden Cookbook, is one of my favorites, and also another really healthy food. And I know for experience it grows year-round here, and that's chard.
Yes, chard has gotten a lot more popularity than it used to, and if you're a beginning gardener, it's a good one to grow because it's so easy to grow. Again, if you thin the seedlings out so they stand the proper distance apart, they'll grow into big vase-shaped plants, and it's one of the most beautiful of garden vegetables, and you can plant it in your flower beds or in your front yard as well as in a vegetable bed because all the stalks, it comes now with many different colored stalks, yellow and magenta and orange and yellow. Once again, the more color, the more nutrition. And you can steam it, saute it, braise it, stuff it. There's lots and lots of stuff to do with it.
Yeah, it's good. I like it even raw in salads as my main green. It's very good. There are some who recommend that you saute it first or steam it, but I haven't had a problem with it raw.
Well, I think if you when you thin your seedlings out, that's a good way to use up the many extras you'll have.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for baby chard. And you're absolutely right about the colorful nature of those thick spines or stalks that they have in the middle because they're so colorful, and you mix them up. I think you have one blend there. Isn't it called the rainbow blend?
Yes, it's got 5 different colors, and then we have a really nice one for containers that has golden stalks. And then we have, because I like bright colors myself, we have a mixture that's gold and then neon magenta called Neon. And then we have a very old heirloom one from Italy that has kind of silvery stalks with deep blue-green leaves. So lots of color and really easy to grow. And in the cookbook, I have a couple of recipes that people may not have thought of. If you take your chard leaves and cut out the stalks, and then you take the leaves, a mature plant has big ones, and dip them in hot water to just kind of wilt them. You can put a little, like any kind of stuffing you'd make for ravioli, you can put in the center and then roll them up like grape leaves, and then poach them in a little chicken broth with lemon. Makes a really nice dish.
Ooh, that sounds good. I bet you could even throw some anchovies in there.
Well, I haven't tried that, but you never know. Try.
Yeah, and garlic, too. It's interesting that a lot of these crops can be harvested at the same time. I always like the idea of homemade salsa, but the problem here is, the tomatoes and peppers and onions and garlic are ready in the summer, but cilantro, you're going to have to wait till winter.
Well, you can grow cilantro in reasonably hot weather if you grow it in a place that gets afternoon sun. Use a row cover and pick it when it's very young. The hotter it is, the younger you pick it. I have seen it grown up in the Napa Valley. I work with a grower there who actually, beside growing some seed for us, he grows very fancy greens for fancy restaurants in San Francisco, and it's very hot up there. I know it's hot where you are, too, but they get up in the early hundreds quite a bit, and that's how he's pretty successful. He actually uses the row covers and afternoon shade. He managed to get cilantro through the summer.
Ah, okay. But I think you meant afternoon shade, not afternoon sun, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I reversed myself. Yes.
That's easy to do. But yeah, cilantro, even if you left the cilantro in the ground to bloom in spring and summer, it attracts a whole host of beneficial insects. So even when its time may be done for eating, it's still doing a heck of a lot of good out in the garden.
Well, that's absolutely true and really important to remember, and an added benefit of having a garden besides feeding yourself. If you let your herbs flower, cilantro being a really good example, and set seed, you're going to be feeding a lot more than yourself, and pollinators need a lot of help now. This year for our seed company, we introduced cilantro from Vietnam that you can actually eat when it starts to go to seed. It has kind of regular-shaped cilantro leaves on the base of the plant, and then the tops are really interesting. They're really kind of ferny, like a dill plant. And when it starts to flower and go to seed, you can still enjoy it. And in Vietnam, they pull the plants, wash the roots, and then they put them in the center of the table, on a plate, and then everybody helps themselves to whole sprigs of the plant.
Now, is that called ram run?
No, that's something different. This is called bak lao. Probably my pronunciation is terrible. And it's from that part of Vietnam. And I had an Italian seedsman who took a vacation in Vietnam and saw this particular variety and really loved it. So he got some seed and grew me a crop. So there you are.
Now, I noticed that at the homepage for your seed catalog, Renee's Garden, you've got GMO with a slash through it. And as far as I know, and in fact, the last time we had this conversation, you'd mentioned that there were no seeds on the home market that were genetically modified organisms, or we really should say genetically engineered. Is that still true?
That is still true, but home gardeners are so concerned that they want us all in the seed business to say that loud and clear. So we do.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement that there's a lot of misconceptions about this, and that the words genetically modified organisms technically includes hybrid varieties too, and bees have been hybridizing plants since year one. And the term that I think people are most fearful of, or should be if they want to be fearful, is genetically engineering. There are no GE home plants on the market at this time, so you can buy from your local seed company without fear of that.
That's true. I don't think there ever will be. Home gardeners don't want genetically engineered varieties. The companies that sell them don't have any interest in the home garden market. You have to be a licensed user. There's so many rules and regulations. I don't think it'll ever happen, and I don't think you'll ever see them in home garden packets.
Renee Shepard, always a pleasure talking with you. You can find more information about Renee's cookbook and the seed catalog. Just go to reneesgarden.com. That's Renee with 2 E's, well, 3 E's, technically, RENEESGARDEN, reneesgarden.com. So, Renee Shepard, once again, thank you for spending some time with us.
It's a pleasure, and thank you very much.
There's a lot of gardening companies out there that like to take surveys, and one of the more popular questions on gardening surveys is, how long do you want to spend doing lawn and garden chores each week? Consistently, the answer is usually the same among the majority of respondents. They want to spend less than an hour a week. I have a funny feeling, since we're gardeners, we're shooting for less than an hour a day, right? Well, anyway, I do have some tips for you to not only bring you closer to that elusive goal, but also ways to free up your spare time for other pursuits as you get older. One of the easiest ways to save time in the garden is to automate. Provide your garden with an automatic watering system. The efficiency of an automated sprinkler or drip irrigation system protects your plants from summertime heat when you're away from home. And a good drip system reduces water usage. It reduces unwanted weed growth as well as plant diseases. So replace your old irrigation control system with a model that can control more valves with more flexibility. For example, there are irrigation control systems that automatically adjust water run times based on the season and the weather. Even more modern systems can sense the moisture in the soil. Those are rather expensive, but in between you have systems that will automatically turn off your sprinklers if it senses rain. While on vacation, you might notice a hot spell coming back home and you'll want to water your container plants. Well, many irrigation control systems now can be turned on via your smartphone. Now, what about for those watering systems that aren't hooked up to valves? Well, consider installing battery-operated water timers at distant faucets to control the watering of garden beds. The better ones not only turn the water on and off, but they offer extended run times, which is perfect for drip irrigation, as well as multiple cycles per day, which is perfect for watering container plants on hot summer days. Many offer multiple outlets for watering several drip or hose-connected areas of your yard. Another tip to save time and also to save your back, elevate. Build raised beds for your annuals, perennials, and your vegetables. Not only do raised beds reduce the amount of stooping and kneeling that are necessary part of gardening, raised beds provide a planting area containing better soil with better drainage, especially for those plants that don't like wet feet. You can build them out of wood, concrete, or brick. A raised bed, usually 18 to 24 inches high, gives you a place to sit while weeding, pruning, or harvesting. Make the raised beds any length you desire, but keep the width less than 4 feet across for ease of reaching into the middle of the bed. And by the way, if you have gopher problems, line the bottom of those raised beds with 1/4-inch mesh hardware cloth, and that'll keep gophers from sampling the fruits of your labor. And there are some interesting new products on the market in the way of plant containers, like the Smart Pots, which are fiber containers, which can last for several seasons if you take care of them. Don't forget that large containers, such as half barrels, also can serve as homes for fruiting bushes. Be sure to drill several 3/4 to 1 inch holes in the bottom and elevate the base of the barrel by an inch or so to assure good drainage as well as air circulation. Now, I mentioned to elevate. Well, there's something to be said for de-elevation. De-elevate. Practice backyard orchard culture with all your newly planted fruit trees. Keep the overall height of fruit trees at 6 or 7 feet. Limiting the height means you don't have to get on a ladder to harvest fruit. Also, the trees are easier to cover with bird netting. Nip back the branches of deciduous fruit trees to the desired height about twice a year. One maybe when you're thinning the fruit in spring, and then again after harvest. Thin out crossing or rubbing branches that are growing into the middle of the canopy. That'll improve sunlight and airflow through the tree. One of my favorite suggestions is eliminate. Life is too short to put up with a problem plant. Why waste time fretting over habitually underperforming perennials, shrubs, or trees? Why tolerate tree litter or plant roots that are upheaving your concrete? If it's growing awkwardly or it's consistently pest infested despite your best efforts, just get rid of it. Purchase another plant better suited to the area and to your changing needs. Now, there is an ongoing attempt, of course, to totally eradicate weeds. Well, that is an exercise in futility. However, adding 3 or 4 inches of mulch, such as a walk-on bark, can dramatically reduce the amount of time you spend pulling weeds. And if you really want to cut down on a monotonous garden chore and you want to save time and money, get rid of the lawn, or at least dramatically reduce that turf area. Mowing, edging, weeding a lawn can average an hour a week. Replace that ongoing chore with a garden area. It's beautiful, it uses much less water with the right plants, and eliminates most weeding thanks to several inches of mulch. Consider soil solarization in the summer or sheet mulching any time of the year to remove the lawn area. And you can find out more information about sheet mulching or removing the lawn with soil solarization in today's show notes or at farmerfred.com. And finally, delegate. Yes, I know we kind of micromanage our gardens, but somewhere in your neighborhood there is a teenager looking to pick up some spending money doing yard chores. Right, a teenager willing to work. Well, you never know. But there may also be that neighborhood guy or gal who has a tractor, a front loader, a chipper shredder, a backhoe, or whatever that could accomplish in a fraction of the time what you're attempting to do with a shovel, a small mower, or a saw. And ask your neighbors for recommendations about professional landscapers and arborists. Check their credentials online and then seek them out. Parceling out yard work to others is tough for gardeners, but grit your teeth, open your wallet if you want to save your back and some time. Thanks for listening to Garden Basics with Farmer Fred, brought to you by Smart Pots. Garden Basics comes out every Tuesday and Friday. It's available on many podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeart, Stitcher, and many more. And if you're listening on Apple, please leave a comment or a rating. That helps us decide which garden topics you'd like to see addressed. And again, thank you.